Norman Bates. Imagine Norman Bates in the real world. He wouldn't last long. Here's why. First, the crime scene itself dooms him. Running a motel means every disappearance points straight back to the person in charge. When a guest vanishes or turns up dead, police immediately look at the owner or staff. Add to that the obvious physical evidence: blood, fingerprints, hair, DNA. Even if Norman tried to clean up, modern forensics can detect trace residues, defensive wounds, and transfer evidence like fibres or shoe prints. Then come the witnesses and timelines. Guests remember who checked them in. Locals recall cars parked outside. Last seen at the Bates Motel would put investigators right on Norman's doorstep, and his odd nervous behaviour, that would only raise suspicions during questioning. On top of that, there's paper and digital evidence. Motel registers, credit card slips, and vehicle records all create a trail. Nearby surveillance cameras from gas stations or highways would capture comings and goings. Even if Norman kept things cash only, investigators today use missing person reports and call records to reconstruct timelines. And here's the fatal flaw: Norman's efforts to conceal crimes only expose him more. In Psycho, he hides his mother's corpse in the house. In reality, the discovery of a preserved body on the property would trigger search warrants and a full forensic sweep. That alone is enough to secure an arrest. Investigators would also bring in profilers and pathologists. The ritualistic staging, the attachment to mother, and the isolated setting all scream of a local offender with psychological instability. Repeated interviews would reveal contradictions in Norman's story, giving detectives probable cause to dig deeper. With a warrant, the Bates property would be searched top to bottom. Clothing, tools, and biological samples would be seized. Forensic labs would match DNA from the victims to items in Norman's possession. At that point, the evidence is overwhelming. From there, police would move fast: arrest, interrogation, and likely a psychological evaluation. Norman's fractured mental state might sway a courtroom toward institutionalization instead of a standard prison term. But make no mistake, he'd be taken off the streets. In short, Norman Bates is the kind of killer who leaves evidence everywhere. His crimes are too localized, his behavior too suspicious, and his setting too small to escape scrutiny. In real life, Norman wouldn't remain a mysterious figure in the shadows. He'd end up exactly where investigators put men like him: under arrest, on trial, and locked away. Dexter Morgan. Miami's quiet blood spatter analyst, and its most prolific serial killer. On the surface, he's polite, harmless, even forgettable. But behind the mask is a vigilante who stalks predators, ties them to a table, and leaves their bodies at the bottom of the ocean. In television, Dexter survives for years. But in reality, his story would almost certainly end behind bars. Here's why. At first glance, Dexter has everything a serial killer could dream of. He works inside law enforcement. He has access to crime scenes, police reports, forensic labs, and databases. He knows what evidence investigators are collecting and how to avoid leaving it himself. This is how he stays ahead. When a murderer slips through the cracks, Dexter knows it, and he strikes before the system catches up. To the outside world, it looks like justice. To investigators, it looks like nothing at all. But hiding in plain sight is a double-edged sword. Because the closer you stand to the fire, the easier it is to get burned. Let's start with the forensics. Dexter prides himself on precision: plastic sheeting, careful dismemberment, controlled cleanup. But no crime scene is ever truly perfect. Think about modern forensic science. Trace DNA, touch samples, fibres invisible to the eye, digital residue. A killer might clean a room spotless and still leave behind skin cells, hair fragments, or particles stuck to a victim's clothing. If even one of Dexter's victims carried a microscopic trace that survived, a forensic lab could match it back to him. And then there's the ocean, Dexter's favourite dumping ground. Night after night, weighted bags sink into the dark waters off Miami's coast. But here's the problem: oceans don't erase evidence. Storms shift currents. Fishing nets drag up debris. Divers and coast guards stumble on what they're not meant to find. In reality, a body dump site used over and over would eventually be discovered. And once police map that pattern, suspicion turns toward anyone with the means and access to dispose of them. But Dexter's greatest flaw isn't physical evidence, it's psychological. Every killer has a ritual, and Dexter is no different. He doesn't just kill, he prepares a room, confronts his victims, and collects a bloodslide as a trophy. Real investigators know that serial offenders almost always keep souvenirs, and trophies are devastating in court. If Dexter's slide collection were ever found, a carefully labelled archive of his murders, it would be case closed. No jury on earth would see it as anything but a confession. Technology adds another layer. In the early 2000s, Dexter might have slipped through surveillance gaps, but today, GPS data, license plate readers, toll cameras, and phone pings map our lives in frightening detail. Imagine investigators start suspecting him. They trace his car. Suddenly, a pattern emerges. His phone always goes dark near the same stretch of coastline. His car passes traffic cameras late at night, heading toward the ocean. His digital footprint betrays him. He wouldn't even need to be caught in the act. The data trail alone would draw the circle around him. And then there's behaviour. Dexter blends in, but never perfectly. He's awkward, detached. He rehearses emotions but doesn't feel them. Colleagues might shrug it off as quirks at first, but after years, those cracks add up. Odd work hours, convenient absences, an analyst who always seems unusually close to cases involving serial killers. Suspicion grows slowly, first whispers, then side glances, and eventually a co-worker who starts watching him as closely as he watches everyone else. The truth is, Dexter's downfall wouldn't be a dramatic slip, it would be a slow squeeze. A diver finding remains offshore, a colleague noticing strange behaviour, a forensic test catching a trace he missed, a bloodslide hidden in the wrong place. One thread at a time, investigators would pull until the entire mask came off. And what happens when it all unravels? Dexter would be arrested, his quiet, normal image shattered by headlines. Police forensics expert moonlights as serial killer. His trials would be front page news, his trophies presented in court, his life dissected under the microscope of public opinion. Because in the end, Dexter Morgan's perfection is only an illusion. Every ritual, every victim, every secret leaves a trace. And no matter how careful he is, in the real world, those traces always add up. Dexter Morgan may believe he's writing his own code, but reality has its own, and it always ends the same way, with the predator finally becoming the prey. Hannibal Lecter. Imagine Dr. Hannibal Lecter, a brilliant psychiatrist, a cultured man of taste, admired by colleagues and trusted by law enforcement. But behind that charm lies a monstrous truth. He is a cannibalistic serial killer. On television, Hannibal manages to slip through the cracks for years. But in the real world, catching him would be one of the hardest cases investigators could ever face. The first signs would appear in the victims themselves. Bodies discovered with surgical precision, organs removed, pieces missing, crimes connected not by circumstance, but by a chilling pattern. Detectives would start to see links, and their eyes would turn toward professionals with the skill to carry them out. That's when suspicion would shift toward someone like Hannibal. And here's the thing, cannibalism leaves evidence. Human remains carry unique marks, bone cuts that no butcher's knife can mimic, traces of tissue prepared like food. Forensic labs are built to pick up those details. However refined his methods, Hannibal's crimes would betray him. His medical knowledge might buy him time. He could mask wounds, preserve bodies, and cover up what others might miss. But that very precision is its own kind of fingerprint. Specialised tools. unusual chemicals, rare equipment that only a trained surgeon would use. Each purchase, each request, each signature trace would form a trail. Of course, Hannibal's greatest shield isn't his scalpel, it's his charm. He wins trust, hosts lavish dinners, even consults with law enforcement. But in the modern world, charm can't erase records. Every credit card purchase, every trip, every phone ping leaves a mark. Under surveillance, his perfect facade would start to crack. And then there's his signature. Hannibal doesn't just kill, he stages his victims, turns them into grotesque displays of art. That ritualistic touch would allow analysts to link cases across cities, across states, across agencies. The moment a task force forms, the consultant sitting at the table suddenly looks a little too close to the crimes he's analysing. Eventually, someone talks. Maybe it's a survivor who remembers a face. Maybe a colleague who recalls a strange request. Maybe a dinner guest who starts to wonder what exactly they were served. One testimony isn't enough, but combined with forensic science, it's the final push investigators need. And science would close in. DNA left behind. Cut marks on bone that match surgical instruments. Exotic preservatives found in toxicology tests. Each piece on its own might look small, but together they paint a picture too sharp to ignore. Even then, Hannibal wouldn't go down easy. He'd fight in court, use his status, his reputation, his lawyers. But airtight evidence always wins. Once investigators present the full case, not even Hannibal Lecter can talk his way out. Because in the end, it's not brilliance that saves killers like him. It's mistakes. A forgotten receipt. A phone ping in the wrong place. A careless word said to the wrong person. Even the most elegant predator makes them. And that's when the net closes. In reality, Hannibal Lecter wouldn't be a legend lurking in the shadows forever. It might take months, it might take years. But with forensic science, financial tracking, and relentless investigation, the outcome would be inevitable. Not a dramatic escape, not a poetic ending, but an arrest, a trial, and a lifetime locked away. Because no matter how refined the monster, in the real world, every predator leaves a footprint